morning, and welcome to CABTalk. This morning it is a lovely day outside and we are enjoying the sunshine, which has been a long time coming. But this morning I've got a special guest on, Jill Greathead. Now Jill is probably quite well known in the Wairarapa for a few things that she's involved with, but the subject today is volunteering. Now, we are volunteers at Citizens Advice, and so Jill works out of the community centre in Masterton, next door to Citizens Advice, and she's going to tell us about the volunteering organisation and how it operates. So, welcome, Jill.
Thank you.
You're on the radio now, so let's go.
Lovely. Thanks, Wesley, and hello to all the viewers the listeners out there. So the way that I sort of say we are volunteering Wairarapa, and we were established in 2015 as part of the Wairarapa Community Centre Trust. They actually own and operate the building, which is known as the Wairarapa Community Centre. And Bev Jack, their manager, felt that it would be great for the Wairarapa to join the ever-growing number of volunteer centres all around New Zealand. So in 2015, she got some amazing funding, she recruited some amazing people, and they established this particular concept. So I'm going to explain to you how we actually operate. Yes. I tend to say that there is and I'll use Citizens Advice as a good example because I know that you have actually had some volunteers through our service. So we have volunteers coming to us, and the way we do that is we promote volunteering, not so much in the last 2 years, but certainly prior to that. Just to give you an idea, in 2018-19, in 1 year, we actually recruited 254 new volunteers. So it's quite a lot of people. So that's how we do it. Yes. We then take them through what is called a volunteer chat in the community centre. We show them what our service is doing online, so we can sort of show them and ask them different questions about the kind of volunteering they would like, and up pops a number of roles, and it is the roles that is very important. So if I look at the requirements that the Citizens Advice require, in fact, could you possibly tell me what the roles that you're looking at?
Well, yes, it has changed quite a bit over the years. When I first started, the people didn't even know how to use a computer, and we'd train them to how to use a computer and search databases and that sort of thing. Yep. Now we expect people to be able to be digitally literate, really, and because there's such a lot of other things to learn when you come. For example, knowing the system, knowing the database of through National Office, and also keeping up with what's happening in the community, but also other issues that we deal with. For example, tenancy's a big thing that goes on forever. Housing, social housing, that's another big issue. So we train people in that regard and give them quite an extensive training. It is being modified. We used to have a whole room full of people. We'd probably train six to eight people at a time, and we'd do it over a few weeks, and it was quite an rigmarole, but I felt it was really thorough. But people haven't got the time to do that. And we haven't got, people that are prepared to come and take the training once a week or for 3 days in a row. So, it's now becoming a one-on-one training. Yeah.
Fine.
So we get novelled, the ones that have been at CAB for a while. They say, right, would you be prepared to be a mentor and train this person up? And so they are, we can come in and do some one-on-one with them, not as an operator in the bureau, just in a separate room, but then we have them as a third worker in the bureau. So they learn the ropes that way, and they also get to know the other operators. the other volunteers. So is working. It is not as easy. I preferred the way where we got a group of people together, because then they knew who the new ones were, and they sort of became a bit of a group, and they could learn off each other.
Yep.
But things change.
They sure do.
And all our, a lot of our training's online. Yeah, it comes from national office, and it's very helpful. Very helpful. Yeah. But as you know, Zoom meetings and all those things are new and hard to often cope with. But that's the way it is. Yeah.
Great. So, what would be the role name for yours? Is it a citizens advice volunteer or a citizens advice advisor? What is the actual role name?
Oh, well, it always used to be a CAB worker, and it hasn't really changed much. It's still a CAB, probably a facilitator of information.
Great.
And our motto hasn't changed. It's still that we empower people to help themselves. So we give them the information to help themselves. For example, a couple of days ago, had a call, and it went on and on for 2 different volunteers coped with the call.
Yep.
And in the end, we just couldn't help, because they wanted us to, or the actual person wanted us to be a political football for him. And we don't do that.
That's right.
No.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. So we would have that role on our website.
Yes.
And the few minutes that you have mentioned and told me about that role, we would pretty much condense that into probably no more than about maybe 70 to 100 words.
Yes, you don't need a lot.
That's right. So that's what we would do. We would also, I guess you could say, assess a person who comes in for what we said was some sort of suitability to do the role. So some people come in, so they tell us what they'd like to do. We then talk to them and we find out what their skill level is, and it's fairly straightforward. What happens is they tell us, and then up pops a number of different roles. So if your role came up, which was possibly suitable to what they said they wanted, then we would go through a list of roles that they might be interested in. So I would assess, without having the database in front of us, that they would probably also, the victim support role might come up, the citizens advice role might come up, potentially the age concerned visitor role might turn up. These are very much people-facing positions. Yes. So they would come up, and we would then discuss with the new volunteer I guess a little bit more in depth as to each of those roles. They may wish to be interviewed by you. If we actually look at age concern, citizens advice, and victim support, they may say, look, I'm new to the Wairarapa. I have a degree. But I have a huge amount of experience in business or government or some sort of quite high level type of situation. And I'd be very interested in, obviously putting back to the community. I'd be pretty keen to find out about each of those roles. So at that point in time, we'd say, well, look, how about we send your details to those 3 organisations. They will contact you, and you will go and have an interview with them. They all have to do, generally speaking, police checks. Yes. The organisations have to. And then you would then ultimately have the option of potentially 3 different organisations that you could volunteer for.
That's right. And we've got an application form that people can fill in that gives them... so they can give us the information, just contact details, but also they need a referee, someone who knows them, someone who could vouch for them as a person of capable of the things that they say they can do, and also the police check or the internal affairs check or whatever it's called now.
Yep.
And that's the important thing, because you also, like you're dealing with people's personal information.
Yep.
And so that's the other thing, the confidentiality of it. You've got to be able to switch off when you go home. But also, you might see people in the street that you know have come in with a problem. So you've got to just not know that when you see them in the street. You don't bowl up to them and say, oh, how are you going? Unless they, well, you know, you just have to say, look, if you have any further issues, just come back to citizens' advice. Don't clobber me in the street, because I'm not able to do that. We've got to be impartial, and non-judgmental,
And very tolerant.
Yes.
Yes.
It's all the things that you learn, those skills through life.
Exactly. That's right. Yes. Absolutely. So we would like to think that we, one of the benefits of going through our service is that we do actually do a sort of a very light suitability assessment on people.
You sort of sift them out a bit, don't you?
We do. And it's obviously embarrassing for someone like your organisation, if someone knocks on the door and says, I would love to be a volunteer in your organisation, and really those people don't have the skills. It's kind of harder because you're all volunteers too. So so the idea is hopefully we would put people towards the volunteer positions in our community. There will be around about 70 of them. Clearly, there aren't that many right now because, of course, things have closed down for volunteering in our community. But as you said before, some great new technology ideas have come through with using online can be very useful. So we would like to think that any volunteer we sent to you would be reasonably perfect for the actual role, because we sort of talked about that takes us anywhere between half an hour and an hour, and then effectively that's our job over. So we are effectively a connection service. Yes. We connect between people who would love to do volunteering and the organisations in our community, of which we have 100 on our database. I would estimate, and I must count these up, around about 25 that take the vast majority of our volunteers. So if you think of the 80-20, 80% of our volunteers would go to around about 25 organisations.
That's amazing that we've got that in the community. Is that throughout the Wairarapa?
It is throughout the Wairarapa, yes.
So that is very good. I'm going to have a break now, play a bit of music, and we'll follow on from there. So just hold on, I'll let you know.
Heaven bent to take my hand and lead me through the fire. Be the long-awaited answer to a long and painful fight. Truth be told, I've tried my best, but somewhere along the way I got caught up in all there was to offer, and the cost was so much more than I could bear. Though I've tried, fallen, I have sunk so low, I messed up better, I should know. So don't come round here and tell me I told you so. We all begin with good intent. Love was raw and young. We believed that we could change ourselves. The past can be undone, but we carry on our back the burden time always reveals. In the lonely light of morning, in the wound that would not heal, it's the bitter taste of losing everything I held so dear. Sunk so low, I messed up those I thought were friends, to everyone I know. Oh, they turn their heads embarrassed, pretend that they don't see that it's one misstep, one slip before you know it. And there doesn't seem a way to be redeemed. Though I've tried falling, I have sunk so low. I've messed up better, I should know. So don't come round here, tell me I told you so. Lord, I messed up better, I should know. Don't come round here, tell me I told you so.
Right, I hope you enjoyed that music.
Lovely.
Yeah, it's nice to have just the bit of background to give us time to gather our thoughts. Now, while we're off air, Jill and I were having a quick talk about what your role is. So you are the manager,
It's correct.
and it's a national organisation.
We are actually local, as in we are a local charity.
Yes.
Volunteering Wairarapa has its own board, and these are Wairarapa people.
Yes.
But we are connected nationally to what is called the Volunteer Centre Network Aotearoa, which is a network of 18 volunteer centres, and we meet online every second week on a Tuesday for an hour, and we discuss issues around volunteering. So it's a fabulous way of sharing the kind of things that we're doing.
Yes. So how many did you say meet up?
18 volunteer centres.
18.
Yes.
So that's quite a chat, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Well, we all have about 5 minutes to say our thing. And obviously, that is obviously an hour of a Zoom. That means that if we want to talk to someone further, like say if I want to talk to Auckland, I've had a lot to do with Auckland Volunteer Centre, which seems a little bit odd seeing that they're the biggest in the country and we're one of the smallest in the country. But that's actually really good because we're rural provincial and they're city.
Yes.
So I'm very friendly with obviously all of those people up there. So then we would take our chat offline and speak, if that makes sense, to them about various issues, of which there have been lots of issues lately, as you can imagine.
I think that it has been like that with Citizens Advice too, which just bureaus not opening because they can't get the personnel. We find that we're on this national link up with the 0800 number, so we'll get calls from Auckland quite often because they're ringing on the 0800 number and the bureau that they're close to isn't open or they don't know where it is. And so it's quite tricky. My co-worker yesterday was trying to work out different areas in Auckland, not knowing Auckland very well, but luckily we've got the maps that show where the different places are, so we can... And you'd be the same, or have you lived in Auckland?
No, I'm not a city girl. I lived in London for a while and that put me off cities. So we're a bit lucky because we are very much more focused locally.
Yes.
Yeah. So we don't have a national 0800 number, thankfully. I did work for Lifeline. I volunteered for Lifeline a number of years ago, and of course they went to that national system.
Yes.
And that obviously on the phone that works because it's an anonymous call, so it's anyone in the country. Whereas we're very much focused from a community perspective because we're talking to people physically. We meet people physically. We don't do anything online or just on the phone. We meet every single volunteer who rings our service.
Yes, they ring, but they've got to come in and
that's correct.
Got to have that face to face.
Absolutely,
yes.
Which is a wee bit different. I know that I think with Auckland, they actually have they do a lot of their link ups online. So they don't have, but then they have a whole different demographic. They have a lot of students who want to do volunteering. We don't obviously have that so much because we don't have universities here and we don't, that kind of thing. So, obviously the nice thing about volunteering, the whole kind of network, is that rural provincial work completely different to cities. So we have a much more personal perspective, whereas in the city, there's no way they can have people coming into the office. Everyone who contacts them come into the office.
No. Yeah. So the people that come in here, are often from away that have come to live here.
Yes.
And looking for things to do.
Absolutely. I mean, there is a lot of people, as we're all aware, and it's been happening for decades, actually, in lots of ways. People coming from cities. So, it's been obviously over the last 2 decades, people selling up their houses in Auckland and moving to a smaller area where they maybe they have children. This is a very common thing. They have children who live in Wellington, work in Wellington, which is quite common, and so they want to be near their grandchildren, their family. So we have a lot of people coming for that reason, for a variety of reasons. So they don't have the community connections that those of us who were born and brought up in the Wairarapa have. So, when I was a child, being brought up in Greytown, you had your family had your particular community group that you were associated with. That was just how things worked because, of course, there wasn't the internet and all of that stuff. No. So you obviously, your family might have been a family who really participated in St John's, as an example. And so, you find that generations participate. There could be, you've been up to 5 generations have participated in something like St John's. Yes. So, you're a sort of St John's family, and that's what your family did as your contribution to your small community. So going back to the people who come here from, say, cities and also many countries, many people come from abroad. That's the most amazing thing as well.
Yes.
They come here and they don't have those connections. So volunteering is a fantastic way of them getting getting known in the community. And I mean, volunteers are our gold in our community because they give their lives to other people effectively. Because generally speaking, volunteering is about looking after the vulnerable in our society. That's kind of where a lot of not everything, either that or the environment.
Yes.
And so therefore you are giving back to other people. So that's a very important thing. And as soon as you start doing that in your life, then you find that you surround yourself with like-minded people. And I'm sure that Citizen Advice have had similar kind of volunteers coming, new to the Wairarapa maybe. And you start a Citizen Advice sort of family, if you like. Yeah, and that's how they get involved, and that's how they develop good friendships. And because volunteers generally aren't people who are Machiavellian in their behaviours, it's all about me and ego driven, they are there to give their time and their advice, then those friendships usually work very well, and you don't have too many difficulties with those friendships.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that we have on our database are groups and organisations that people can belong to meet others and participate in a club or an enjoyment.
Absolutely.
Craft. So we have a good list of things that people can join other than volunteering, which gives that dimension to our what we do. So when people come to the Wairarapa, they think, what are we going to do? We've got time on our hands. So volunteering comes first, really, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yes. And I mean, I spent 15 years away in the UK, and I moved to Yorkshire. I went to university there for a bit as an adult, I think I was 30 at the time, or 30, something like that. And you are in a new community, and what do you do? So I actually did victim support volunteering. Yes. Which was amazing and led to so many different ideas and things. We had a business, an IT business. We then developed databases for what was it now? Was it for victim support? For victim support, obviously. And then we started working for West Yorkshire Police with all of their offender databases and various other things, because we were in the PC industry and that was just starting. Yes. So you volunteer, not realising that in actual fact later on down the track you gain a reputation reputation and of trust
Yes.
and respect, and then you get asked to do a commercial job, which
Yes.
is fantastic. So yeah, and I also volunteered as neighbourhood support in my area.
Yes.
Which was amazing. So I got into volunteering actually, and this is the first time I've thought of this, when I actually moved to a new area.
Yes.
Yeah.
You did.
Yes, and it was a fantastic 7 years of my life.
Yes.
Very good. And I wouldn't have left there had it not been for my mother, who remained in Greytown. At 76, I realised that I really need to go back and spend more time with her. So that was kind of the impetus for actually leaving an amazing community in Yorkshire.
Oh.
Mm.
So you've had a great time overseas.
Oh, I had a fabulous time in the UK.
Yes.
Wonderful, and I would consider going back at any time, but my children are still here, so that
Yes.
that keeps me here, I guess.
Yes. Yes. It's wonderful when your children are close by.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Although I hope 21 and 27, I'm hoping that they will actually use their British passports, which their dad is British.
Yes.
I'm also a British citizen as well, and actually do that OE, because I really feel, looking at my life and looking at a lot of my friends, that you can't buy that kind of experience. It's amazing to have that overseas experience, which gives you all sorts of amazing opportunities. So I'm hoping that they will actually go to the UK. But these days, with phone calls and Skypes and Zooms these days, it's not so much of a problem. I mean, my mother was lucky enough to get an aerogram from me twice a year. And certainly no phone calls. I couldn't afford phone calls.
No, it reminds me of when my daughter went away.
Sure.
Yes. There's a bit of an age gap between us, you and me, but my daughter, when she went overseas, was, she wrote beautiful letters when I got them, but not a lot, and to ring home was quite expensive. Was usually reverse the charges, but
Of course.
you're always thrilled to hear from them. That's the thing, isn't it?
Yes. Well, also, my mother was very lucky and able to visit every year or so.
Yes.
So she came over a lot. And she was English herself.
Yes.
So it was amazing. So that was always good as well.
Yes, so she was able to enjoy the security of having you there when she came over.
Oh, yes, she stayed with me, even if it was
Yes.
on the floor of a flat that I was in.
Yeah, and lots of travel, yes.
Yes, oh yes, lots of travel to see her family as well all around the UK. So it was amazing, an amazing time of my life.
Good, yes. Well, we'll play some more music.
Awesome.
Barricades and brick walls won't keep me from you. You can tie me down on a railroad track. You can let that freight train loose. Iron bars and big old cars won't run me out of town. Well, I'll be damned if you're not my man before the sun goes down. We
There we are. I hope you enjoyed that music. When we were off here, we were talking about the fact that we both have views, but we keep them to ourselves because when we're in the role that we are, we cannot afford to be outspoken about our views. We're impartial when it comes to dealing with volunteers and, like myself, at Citizens Advice Bureau. It's a role that we're non-judgmental. We can help people and guide them, but that's all we can do. Yeah. So, right, where are we now? We're at ages. You found it's difficult to get young people involved. We can't have young people at Citizens Advice because our times are not right, and they may train up and be absolutely super, but then they've got a life and they don't have the commitment the same.
So I guess we should really define young people. And I would like to, but obviously for us, we define them effectively from 18, so
Yes.
when they're young adult, because we can't really do volunteering before 18, because then it comes a whole lot of Children's Act, it comes about police checks and things like that. So it's better to leave that. We suggest if young people of, say, 14 or 15 want to volunteer, then they do so with their parents.
Yes.
And then that's how that works. So young people, for me, is just the way we see it, is approximately, and obviously it's not this is not a definite, is 18 to 30.
Yes.
So that's kind of where so it covers the 20s.
Yes.
So you were mentioning, obviously, yes, no, we would never send a young person to your service. And to be honest with you, probably post 50 plus for you guys, because obviously people in their 20s and possibly 30s and 40s are still bringing up their family. So their priorities are not with necessarily other people. Their priorities are getting their own families sorted. And so maybe their children have left home and they have a little bit more time on their hands. They may still be working full time, and some volunteer positions can accommodate that. I'm not too sure, Wesley, whether that's something that you can do after business hours or not, or are you definitely within business hours?
We're definitely within 9 till 4.
Yes. So people who work full time, obviously they can't. But
yeah, we used to have people that did the odd shift work that could work in with our times, and they would, on the days that they didn't work, they could come and be a volunteer.
yes.
And so we do have a few that work, but mostly if they work, they can be self-employed perhaps and work it around what they do. But also we did have a lovely guy that worked for us quite a while ago now, and he worked at the library, and on his day off he'd be our cab worker, and he was great. He loved it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So generally speaking, those people who are working I'm talking about working full time,
Yes.
not self-employed or
No.
whatever. They do want to volunteer. So that's where victim support is a really great role, because
Yes.
obviously I'm not saying it's a 24-hour role, but yeah, certainly they can have people out of hours, and
So they could be on a slot from 11 till midnight or 1 in the morning. Do people ring on victims?
No, look, I'm not entirely sure. I must go back to the schedule now, but they do have certain times, because of course they work very closely with the police.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, obviously crime doesn't stop. So
No.
in 24 hours. So I'm not too sure of the actual roles, but we've got a great group here in the Wairarapa, and you would just choose what you did. Obviously, I think victim support is probably quite different now to when I did it back in the late 80s and early 90s in the UK. But we used to go do a lot of home visiting.
Yes.
So that's how it is. But I mean, as you say, life changes and roles change as well. Getting back to young people, I just want to mention to you briefly of a initiative that we started up back in 2018 when we were working with health, work and income, and we were asked if some people who are called job seekers could do volunteer positions. Now, again, one of the big problems is if you are a job seeker and potentially you've never had a job or not been successful in a few of jobs, it's unlikely you're going to be confident, really, of going into a volunteer role. So we recognised that in actual fact we needed a mentor to help and work with that. So you mentioned about using mentors in your organisation, even with people who've had heaps of experience. And I think mentoring is something that the new world post-COVID, I think it's going to be very necessary for mentors all over the place, in all different roles, even new candidates that get elected onto councils, which is another volunteer work that I'm doing, completely independent of volunteering Wairarapa. So mentoring. So we went out to community. So we had I think at the time, 5 of these young people who really wanted desperately to get into our community. They really didn't have anything to do during the day. There were no programs for these people. And so we managed to get an equivalent number of older people, retired people, who mentored these people. And the big attributes that these people had to have, more than probably even your volunteers, was being totally and utterly non-judgmental, and we're using the word tolerant of unusual behaviours. Some people are on the autism spectrum, and it's an understanding of how those people work. So the kind of roles that we got, both of these volunteers, because they're both volunteers, one mentor and one buddy, we called them buddy, we called them mentors buddies. It seemed a nicer name than a mentor, and a young person. So the op shops is a great one. And obviously going gardening, planting, those were the sorts of things. We even had it happening when I've got to remember the name, the Parkinson's. We did a lot of work with Parkinson's with a swimming program that they did. And we did have a young volunteer with a mentor with that, and she was amazing, absolutely incredible. So the idea was that the mentors would stay for as long as necessary for the young volunteer to get involved. And the ideal thing would be that that volunteer will then gain confidence, get their CV done, go to Dress for Success, and actually get paid work.
Just a little aside, my granddaughter, I'm very proud of her. She's 17, and I haven't heard, but I think she's going to Victoria next year. But she was looking for something to do through school. And so she's a good swimmer. So she applied to the council in her area to teach children to swim. So she got a job and she gets paid to teach little kids to swim at the local swimming pool.
Fantastic.
So she can put that on her CV.
Exactly. It's very important, whether it's a paid position or a volunteer position. I like to, when I sort of advise people about their CVs, like to use the word community involvement. Because that can be a whole lot of different things. It doesn't necessarily need to be, a volunteer position that's gone through the volunteer centre or whatever. It can be a whole lot of other bits and pieces. So, and you as a care, as a cub, as a scout, you can still put that on your CV as a young person.
And the other thing that I think is really important is that learning to swim. Because so many children are at the beach and don't know how to swim. And I don't know what you did when you were a young girl at school, but we had not so much teachers teaching us to swim, but I used to go to what was called swimming club, where we had a teacher that taught us to swim, and was it every Thursday or something we'd be down at the pool and she'd be teaching us to swim, and it was great.
That was the olden days.
That was the olden days. Now you have to look for something, similar, because and it's out there. You see a lot of swimming going on at our local pool. And Carterton's got a good swimming pool.
Well, a wonderful indoor pool, which
Yes.
is open all year round, which is fantastic. So
Yes.
they have a Jolly Roger swim school, etc. But, the issue, of course, is that it's really only those parents who can afford to send their children to these things, and they're the ones that obviously
Yes.
get taught. Whereas in our day, every single person was taught to swim.
Yes.
So, and every school had a swimming pool. It was freezing cold,
Yes.
but these days I understand there are so much compliance around school swimming pools, huge expense in terms of trained lifeguards, which is okay, but unfortunately, the compliance and the cost of the compliance has meant that a lot of people don't get those opportunities that our generation had in the
No.
1950s and 60s and 70s when we grew up.
School pools are still around.
Yes,
Yes.
but they're not used like they were in
No,
our day.
not used like they were, no.
Ours were open at the weekend. You could just go along to the school swimming pool or the nurses' swimming pool up
Yes.
at the Greytown Hospital was where we used to go.
Yes.
And obviously the town pool was opened, and in my day it was $1.50 and per year, and you just used to wander in going season. It was a season ticket. You paid $1.50 for the whole year, so everyone went. Every
Yes.
single kid in the community went.
Yeah. Well, it'd be very good if there was funding for schools, for the general public to be able to get a certain age group into a pool without having to pay.
Yes. Well, the good news is, of course, that Carlton District Council and all South Wairarapa councils now free admission to the swimming pool, the town swimming pool, in the winter. Not
winter.
obviously. No, sorry, not in the winter. Not in the winter. In the
No,
summer.
in the summer, when it doesn't cost them so much to run the pool.
Well, it's an outdoor pool.
Yes.
So it's only open during the summer. Obviously, the indoor pool is a privately owned pool by the swimming club in Carterton. So obviously, I haven't right now because I'm a little busy at the moment, but I have over the last year bought like a 2-monthly ticket.
Yes.
And I can go in and out of that pool whenever, because I love swimming as a form of exercise.
Yes, I do too, but I haven't done it for so long. It really makes me mad. I don't know what it was. I think something put me off going to the pool when things were a bit buggy and yes.
Luckily, we didn't have those restrictions in Carterton
No.
because it was a private swimming pool.
Yes. Right. Well, we are chewing the fat, aren't we?
Yes.
And I think the volunteering is what we do. Yeah, and that's really good.
My goal would be that every person in the Wairarapa has a volunteering role of some description that they can call, their thing. And like we're going back into the olden days, and as I say, I was brought up in the Greytown community as a completely different community now, but everyone had their role. Even
Yes.
as a young child, you had your role. You were even able to pick fruit and earn money until the unions came in
Yes.
and made it more difficult for employers to obviously let young 7-year-olds pick raspberries and eat most of them and throw lots of them around. But yeah, they were good days, and they taught us about work ethic and working, and they gave us value for living.
Yes. Yes. I don't think that I started working at 7, but I did work when I was at college picking
Yes.
fruit. Like you start doing that, boysenberries.
Yes, boys.
They stained your clothes rather badly, and so you didn't throw them around too much. Or Mum was furious when you came home with boysenberry all over your clothes.
But you should have been a little bit more responsible at that age.
I do remember the people that I worked for. They were wonderful people.
Was that in the Wairarapa?
No, that was in Marlborough because I
Oh,
grew
yes.
up in Marlborough.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
So that,
Well, Greytown was the fruit basket, I think they used to call it, of the Wairarapa. So we used to have buses, all the
Yes.
road services buses, bringing all the pickers in
yep.
to our town. So and they often used to go to the pools afterwards. It was a good scene. Of course, most of the time we used to spend our money, cash, little 5 cents a punnet or whatever we were given, down at the milk bar.
Where they played the jukebox.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And had our milkshakes.
Yes. Right, shall we have another music? Let's see how we go on this one.
Every time my tears have ever fallen, keep 'em in my pocket. it's pouring, I take them outside. I let the rain start washing my tears away. But on a bad day, when hearts are breaking, there's not enough rain to carry all the tears away. Every time I'm blue, I take my feeling, I hold it tighter, and I don't let go. And when the sky gets wider and the air is colder, I throw my feeling to the falling snow. But on a bad day, when hearts are breaking, there's not enough snow to carry all the blues away. Every time my heart starts breaking, I take this pain and I hold it down, and I wait for the wailing. When the wind is coming, my pain is blowing through another town. But on a bad day, when hearts are breaking, there's not enough wind to carry all the pain away. Every time my tears have ever fallen, keep 'em in my pocket for a rainy day.
Right, well, we're going to wrap up quite soon. So Jill's got one little position that she is in, because I'm sure you all know that she is a candidate for the Carterton Council. So in your role there, you might fill us in a little bit.
Sure. Yes, well, look, when we spoke about this particular program and me coming on, I did sort of think it would be quite good to talk about a role that I am volunteering in, but it is completely independent of volunteering Wairarapa. So, and this is a role that has just come up over the last year. So it was very much understood that there has been a real low interest in people wanting to be on councils, and this is not just the Wairarapa, this is all around the country. It's become a much more challenging role than when I first started back in 2001, when it was far more simple. Generally speaking, now we are getting a lot of legislation come down from central government, and I think most people now know the Three Waters reform. We have also RMA reform, that's Resource Management Act reform, and also there is a panel out of Department of Internal Affairs looking at the future of local government. So there's going to be a massive change in some way. So, I mean, a lot of people are pretty much put off by that. I did go to my, as an example, I went to my folder with all of the information that we've been sent regarding the Three Waters, and it's over 2,000 pages. Now, don't worry, I haven't read it all.
Well, no one could.
Exactly. So, you know, you can kind of just see the whole kind of submerging of all this information. I'm like, who would do this? So we have a problem now.
Yes.
So I was approached back in April, whether I would consider coming onto a project team called Refreshing Local Democracy. And the whole purpose of that was to create an independent training program which was designed to prepare new candidates only, not existing ones, basically for local government. Because when you're a new candidate, you have no idea what you're heading into. I was one of those people 2001, I had no idea what was going on. But in those days, it was a relatively straightforward task. So the outcome of that was that we prepared a 6-week program from 6th of June until the 14th of July. And that was to create 4 different training programs online for four programs over 6 weeks. So we delivered 24 training sessions, of which over 300 people attended all around the country. Yeah. We had no money. We still have no money. All of it was word of mouth, which was amazing. So that was training us to prepare for elections. Mm-hmm. It was managing the media. There was some leadership development in it. And very importantly these days, reputational risk and cybersecurity. So I took the initiative of the 1-hour program about preparing you for elections. So I guess the reason I said I did that and I was passionate about it was I've seen over the years new and very good prospective councillors, people with heaps of skills and experience that should be on our councils, that struggled to campaign against the incumbents that were on councils. And also, if they were a little bit older, they were less savvy with social media and big billboards with airbrushed photos, promoting how great people are. And so these people I've seen maybe should be on councils, but they're not getting on. They're not, because they've never bothered to promote themselves before. You've got to do a sales job on yourself these days.
Yes, so that must be how so many people are reluctant to put themselves forward.
Totally, because you might be a CEO of a major organisation, like we're talking a major international organisation, and why would you put yourself on the chopping block when people will just call you a pale, stale male? I mean, I wouldn't do that. Oh. Now, there are roles for these people, and that is mentoring. So that is another area that we do want to pursue in this particular program. But just let me put that on hold for a minute, and I will just mention the outcome, obviously, of our training program. Yes. So part of the training program, the reason it was up until the 14th of July was that nomination period in 4 councils start 4 weeks before the 12th of August. So we wanted to do the training before people could be nominated. Yes. After that training, people were then asking us, could you help us with our nominations? And so we did. So during those 4 weeks, we actually helped people online or on the phone or whatever to do nominations. We helped them with their wording. I was happy to do that. There were another couple of people that were also helping that happen. And so people put in their nominations. Yeah. So at the moment, I've had no time to go and see how many people we trained as to how many people have actually put in nominations. I will do that this weekend. Then after that period of time, people were saying, well, we need support. We would like to know how we should answer the question, are you for or against the 3 waters?
Yes.
And we'll only have a minute to do it on the stage in front of all of our community. We want a bit of help with that. We would really like help to do candidate speeches. We would like to have help with what our pamphlets should look like, what our billboards should look like. So you'll be pleased to know that this support has continued and will continue until the 10th of October.
So the 10th of October, that is a local body election day.
Well, that's 8th of October.
So
I'm saying 10th because we have got in our schedule, obviously, a Zoom call. All of this is done on Zoom. Yeah. And so we have actually a meeting on the 10th of October. And by that stage, we will know who is on council. So what I say is who is inside the tent, which is an elected representative, or who is outside the tent. And then we will go from there. At that particular meeting, I will say, right, guys, would you still like support from Refreshing Local Democracy, or shall we park it until 2025 and run this program then? I suspect they will be desperate for support, and that will be an exciting time. I just want to say that we're all volunteers and none of us get paid. Mm-hmm. And it has been probably one of the most amazing volunteer positions I've done, because it's completely and utterly using all of the skills, the experience that I've built up over my 64 years on this planet.
Well, Jill, you could talk for another half hour, but we're just about finished. So you give us your contact details for the volunteering Wairarapa.
Absolutely. So look, everyone's online now. I say to people, just Google volunteering Wairarapa. You'll get immediately to our website, and all our contact details are on there.
Yes.
We do prefer people making an appointment to come to visit us, because most appointments can often be half an hour.
Yeah.
Although we're happy for people just to wander in, and then we would make an appointment if they wanted to come in. Our office hours generally, not always, are 11 till 3. 5 days a week.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for coming in. I've thoroughly enjoyed listening and talking to you, and I wish you all the very best with your future, be it with volunteering or be it with your local body elections.
Thank you.
Now, you have been listening to CABTalk. It's your local community radio. Remember, if you are wanting some information, you can call us too on 0800 367 222 and 06 377 0078. And thank you to Arrow FM for providing us with this community radio program. Goodbye. Okay. You know what to do.